closing time at the Rusty Anchor always brought a sense of relief. As the heavy door swung shut behind the last customer, I reached over to lower the blaring music. The transition from chaos to silence was almost soothing, the hum of neon signs, the soft clinking of glasses, and the rhythmic motions of cleaning up. It was just another routine night at the bar where I worked, or at least that's what I thought. I had been pouring drinks all night for people who would probably forget my name by morning. The dim red and blue glow from the beer signs cast strange, elongated shadows across the bar, making the empty stools look almost like hunched figures. Near the register, David, the owner, and my boss was hunched over a stack of receipts, rubbing his temple with one hand and flipping through paperwork with the other. He looked exhausted, his face lined with the stress of end-of-month numbers. "I can't drive you home tonight with all this paperwork I have to do," he muttered, motioning toward the mess in front of him. "You good to walk?" I hesitated. Something about the night felt off. I couldn't put my finger on it. Maybe it was just the way the air felt unusually thick, or the strange stillness outside. But I had walked home plenty of times before. Pushing away the unease, I forced a smile. "Yeah, I'll be fine. It's a warm night, and the stars will look amazing." David grunted, focused on his paperwork. I wiped down the sticky counters, the scent of whiskey and stale beer lingering. As I flipped chairs and swept the floor, my mind drifted. I regretted arguing with my girlfriend earlier. I'd fix it tomorrow. To distract myself, I thought about my upcoming trip to Cedar Ridge. A day in nature, just me and the wind in the trees, sounded perfect. I sighed, tossing my rag onto the counter and grabbing my keys. "See you tomorrow, Dave," I called out. He waved me off without looking up. "Be safe." The door creaked as I pushed it open, stepping into the cool night air. The parking lot was empty, except for a single streetlight flickering overhead. The town had long since gone to sleep, leaving only the occasional passing car in the distance. I pulled my hoodie tighter around me and started walking. I had done this walk 100 times before. A straight shot down Maple Street, past the old gas station, then a left onto Holloway. 15 minutes, tops. The night was unusually silent. Not just quiet silent. No chirping crickets, no rustling leaves, not even the distant bark of a dog. The only sound was my own footsteps, echoing slightly on the pavement. I swallowed hard, picking up my pace. The night sky was breathtaking, a deep velvety blue with a bright full moon hanging just above the horizon. A single, wispy cloud drifted lazily past it. As I walked, the rhythmic crunch of my sneakers on the pavement blended with the chirping of crickets and the occasional rustle in the grass. The night was warm, thick with the lingering scent of wildflowers and damp earth. A gentle breeze carried the distant hum of a highway, the faint whoosh of cars barely audible over the sounds of nature. It was the kind of night that felt almost too quiet, too still. Then, without warning, everything changed. The chirping stopped, the rustling ceased. Even the wind seemed to vanish, as if the world had been placed on mute. I froze mid-step, my breath caught in my throat. The silence pressed in around me, heavy and unnatural. I turned my head slowly, scanning my surroundings, my pulse hammering in my ears. That's when I saw it. Floating about 200 feet above the ground was a massive circular object. Larger than a 2-story house, it hovered without a sound, perfectly still. Its surface was impossibly smooth, with no seams or visible structure, as if it had been molded from a single piece of metal. White, purple, and green lights pulsed along its edges in a rhythmic pattern, casting an eerie glow against the night sky. I squinted, trying to make sense of what I was seeing, but my mind refused to process it. "What the hell is that?" I whispered to myself, though I wasn't sure I even wanted an answer. I ran through a mental checklist of every aircraft I had ever seen: planes, helicopters, drones, but none of them matched what hovered above me. It was dead silent, eerily still despite its size. No propellers, no wings, no visible engines. Then, without warning, a beam of bluish-white light shot down from the craft, engulfing me. My body jerked involuntarily as I felt myself lift off the ground. Panic surged through me, and I instinctively raised my arms to shield my face from the blinding glow. My entire body tingled as if every nerve was being activated at once. I tried to scream, but my voice refused to work. I was completely paralyzed. My limbs wouldn't respond. I couldn't even blink. A strange mechanical hum filled the air, vibrating deep within my chest. It wasn't coming from the ship itself, but from the beam holding me in place. The sensation was unlike anything I had ever experienced, weightless yet crushing, freezing yet burning. As I was pulled closer to the craft, I could finally see it in detail. Its surface was impossibly smooth, as if it had been molded from a single piece of material. No seams, no rivets, no panels. Just an unbroken metallic structure that pulsed with an eerie glow. The moment I crossed the threshold into the ship, the beam dimmed, and I dropped onto a smooth, cold floor. The walls glowed with the same strange white, purple, and green hues as the exterior, pulsating softly. The air smelled bizarre, a mix of burnt plastic, caramel, and something metallic. I floated slightly above the surface, unable to move. 4 beings drifted toward me. They weren't human. The one nearest to me leaned in, its large, almond-shaped black eyes locking onto mine. It had smooth gray skin, a tiny slit for a mouth, and 2 small holes for a nose. Its body was impossibly thin, clad in a tight silver suit. I felt something in my Minda presence, a voice that wasn't a voice. Do not be afraid. The message wasn't spoken. It was placed inside my thoughts, like an echo bouncing through my skull. I struggled to move, to scream, but my body still refused to obey me. You will be returned. I wanted to believe it, but my panic only deepened as I was gently guided onto a metallic table. In a blink, my clothes were gone. My breath came in sharp gasps as I took in my surroundings. The room was small, sterile, and featureless. Then I noticed her. On another table beside me, a woman lay frozen in place, her eyes wide with terror. Tears streaked her pale cheeks. She wasn't alone. 4 of the beings hovered around her as well. One of them held something. My stomach twisted as I realized what it was. A baby. It was small, delicate, and still attached to its umbilical cord. The woman's silent screams were the most horrifying sight I had ever witnessed. I wanted to reach for her, to help, but I was utterly powerless. Before I could process anything else, a sudden sharp pain shot through my spine. It was unlike any pain I had ever felt, deep, invasive, unbearable. My mouth opened in a soundless scream, my vision blurred with tears. Then, everything went black. A moment later, I was walking. Not inside the ship, not on the metallic table. I was back on the road, halfway home. The night was still and eerily quiet. The crickets chirped in the distance, their rhythmic song filling the void. The wind whispered through the grass, carrying the scent of damp earth and asphalt. My feet moved in a steady rhythm, my sneakers tapping against the pavement as if I had been walking this entire time, as if nothing had happened. A deep unease crept over me, slow and suffocating, like a shadow stretching over my mind. My limbs felt impossibly heavy, as though some unseen force had drained the strength from my body. My skin tingled with a sensation I couldn't place, pins and needles, but deeper, buzzing under the surface. My breath came in short, shallow bursts, my chest tightening with something I couldn't explain. I took a step forward, my legs wobbling beneath me. It felt like I was walking through molasses, my movements sluggish, disconnected. My heart pounded against my ribs, my pulse loud in my ears. I tried to think, to remember, to make sense of what had just happened, but my mind was a foggy mess. Then, panic set in. My fingers twitched as I reached into my pocket, fumbling for my phone. The smooth glass of the screen was cold against my clammy palm as I turned it on. The bright light seared my eyes, momentarily blinding me, but I forced myself to look. 4 a.m. I blinked, my vision swimming. That wasn't possible. I left work at 2 a.m. The walk home was only 20 minutes. 2 hours. 2 whole hours had disappeared. I should have been home already. The realization sent a fresh wave of terror through me. My stomach churned, nausea rising in my throat. My hands trembled violently as I clutched the phone, my knuckles white. I tilted my head back, my breath hitching as I stared at the sky. The stars, God. The stars were wrong. They weren't where they were supposed to be. I wasn't an astronomer, but I had walked this road every night for years. I knew the way the constellations dotted the sky, how the moon hung over the rooftops. But now, everything was shifted, distorted. The moon wasn't where it should have been. It was wrong. Something had happened. Tears welled in my eyes. My throat tightened as a sob built in my chest, forcing its way out in a ragged breath. I didn't know why I was crying, only that I couldn't stop. Something inside me had changed. Something had been taken, and I knew, deep in my bones, that I would never be the same again. And the moral of the story is, curiosity about the unknown can be dangerous, and not everything from beyond our world has good intentions.